I believe in being really raw and honest and authentic on this channel. And for those of you who are new to my channel, you've never seen my face before, my name's Danielle. I'm a business owner, I'm a community mentor, and this channel is my way to really connect with more folks who care about connection and community building and really creating a better, brighter world. This specific playlist is really focused on my own journey in capacity building as a business owner, as a community mentor. And I would try to take this time to reflect, not only to share with you a bit about my path, my journey, but to also really give myself the space to grow and appreciate how far I've come on this journey. Because if you ever did want to go back to some of the first videos I posted on this channel, you can see within like the first 5 seconds of that video how much has changed in less than a year. In this episode specifically, you can tell I'm actually on my way to bed, hence the pajamas, hence the lack of glasses. And something stopped me from getting into bed. I wasn't going to record this today. And is Leo going to make a cameo? Maybe. That's my cat, if you're new here. I wasn't going to record this tonight. I'm tired. I feel like I'm getting a migraine. The pain is eased, at least for now, but it really affects my energy, I notice. And honestly, there's so much heaviness in the world right now. I'm filming this on February 3rd. Bright light, too bright, way too bright. Excuse me for a second. This is going to be a chaotic video. I don't think I'm going to start it over. I think that's part of the fun. Making it a little imperfect, right? There is so much grief and chaos and heaviness in the world today, globally. You can look at almost any country and hear some very heart-wrenching realities that people have to live through. And I am grateful that where I live, I am not living through a lot of the same realities as other people. I am an incredibly privileged person, mostly because I'm white, mostly because I'm cisgender. And this means that as of right now, my right to exist is safe compared to a lot of other groups out there. At the same time, as a human being, especially as someone who cares as much about community and connection as I do, I can't look away from those who are in positions where their right to live on their ancestral lands or exist in a body that's authentic to them are being jeopardized. I can't turn away from the narratives and stories and realities of people across the globe experiencing genocide. I can't look away from the states. I can't. As I said, there's a lot. This video is not specifically about that, but it adds a broader context to what I do want to share. And this is because, again, in this playlist specifically, I talk about how I've grown. I've talked about how I've expanded my comfort zones. And I did take a huge step for myself over the last week related to an issue that's not really separate from these bigger narratives playing out globally, but also, to the left. the Canadian flavor version of it, the Alberta experience version of it, because Alberta is where I live, it's where I was born. And right now, the Alberta separatist movement is a push, and I won't get into the theories behind who's pushing, but it is a push to separate Alberta as a province from Canada. And there are many reasons that I disagree with this in entirety. Some are the more practical aspects of it, and some are really based in the more ideological side of things. And because of this movement, because the petition was being signed in my hometown this past weekend, I was called to organize a counter demonstration. And this was one that I was focused on being very values aligned for myself. I wasn't seeking to go and be angry and seek out confrontations with the people signing the petitions. But I wanted to create a space where, those who do believe in staying part of Canada can come, can talk, can connect with each other. It was about showing up in a way that was authentic to me, in a way that was fun, and it was a huge step outside my comfort zone because I've built a lot of comfort existing behind a camera, for example, or writing my articles or creating my video courses. I've built a lot of comfort doing that. I've built a fair bit of comfort with things like sales, but activism and showing up in a very physical way is something that I have always had the privilege of being able to opt out of. And to be fair, I had the privilege to be able to opt out of this past weekend too. I asked myself many, many times if I really wanted to do it and go through with it. I had the opportunity to choose not to. And I continued because hitting the pavement, handing out flyers, talking to people, that was a huge comfort zone expansion for myself. Doing the work to sit there and meet new people and see the support was an expansion for myself. And for all those reasons, I am glad that I did it. Now, one of the things that I really realized by doing this, by stepping out, by actively showing up, putting my body in the position to be there on that day, one of the things that I learned is how something like a demonstration or a protest really lacks nuance. And I say this because I did have the opportunity, we'll say, to talk about why I was there that day on the news. And I had the opportunity to do a radio interview earlier in the week, and we had some great support come out of that interview on the radio. I never actually listened to it because it was on a station that I don't listen to. But then Global News Calgary came out to do a story about it. And of course they were doing both sides of the story, right? The people signing the separatist petition and then the people, or me, at this oppositional demonstration. And in this opportunity, and I understand the limitations of an interview, the limitations of the time slot, but I was able to speak directly from my heart, from what felt authentic and aligned, and then going and watching the interview the next day. Actually, I think I watched it the first time that evening, how it was edited, how what I said was juxtaposed against what people going to sign the petition were saying. It lacked nuance because there was not the time given to the complexities of these issues. But it also felt intentionally edited to be more confrontational and focused on gaining outrage rather than really getting into why I showed up. And I can say this, I think, because there was a lot that I said to the reporter on that day, but the parts that were really focused on in the interview, because it had to be short, were the most potentially rage baity bits of what I had said. And so watching that interview, I was like, I do not like that. I see why people avoid speaking to the news, because they cut off so much of what I said, one of which was really celebrating the fact that I love Alberta as a province because we've done things like create the food bank system. Like Edmonton's food bank in Alberta was the first one in Canada. That's an amazing thing. That didn't get into the interview. So that was one thing. It was an expansion opportunity. It was an experience that I am glad I had, but it was something that reflected to me the misalignment for myself doing that kind of work at that kind of demonstration. And it really showed to me the way that people do not perceive nuance. And the other side of this that I found very limiting and honestly very saddening is that when I first realized I wanted to do this, when I was asking myself why I care so much about showing up for my province, Alberta, why does it matter to me? The answer that I was able to give myself was, well, I love the land here. I love that we have the mountains and the forests and the grasslands. I love that. I do. And yes, there is so much beautiful land in Canada. There's so many places to go and move to that have the same amount of beauty in a different way, that for myself, I could easily leave. And if Alberta went through with if that happened, if that reality came to be, I would leave. I would move in an instant. But the reason why I showed up, and the reason that really got lost in what people were able to perceive and what people were showing up for themselves, was that, yes, I can leave, but the peoples in Alberta, the Cree, the Blackfoot, the Piikani nations, Dene nations who live here, who this is their ancestral territory, cannot just up and move to another part of Canada because their culture is still so deeply tied to these lands. And so what I really was showing up for was this solidarity as a treaty person myself, because in Alberta we're all treaty peoples. That was the energy I wanted to bring. And I have to recognize in myself that, yes, I didn't use that as a reason to bring other people into the conversation. I did not start my pamphlet handing outing talking about that, about Indigenous sovereignty and the fact that they are nations who made an agreement with Canada, not Alberta, when they signed these treaties. The fact that there's legal implications of this proposed separatism, and the fact that Alberta separatists are very, very ignorant to the ways that Indigenous peoples have contributed to Canada in very meaningful and profound ways. That was not a topic I could broach because I knew in my hometown, the people I was speaking to, that to approach my demonstration from this lens would end up with less support than vocally supporting Canada itself as a political entity. And this didn't sit right with me because, yes, Canada is here now, but Honestly, I know this isn't the video to dissect it in whole. So if you are watching this, please know that there is still so much depth to this conversation. And please know that I am coming to it wholly humble in the fact that I am probably saying things wrong or making mistakes. And I am coming with the intention to learn. So if I am misstating things, please tell me in the comments. But when we talk about things like reconciliation or decolonization, or even just anti-racism, unlearning the bigotry so many Canadians still hold towards Indigenous peoples, it makes me so sad and angry that the Alberta separatist movement exists in the fact that it's overriding these other conversations that, in my opinion, are far more important and I would far rather be having right now than this temper tantrum with people who believe that a colonial country has ended up stealing from them and extracting their labor and extracting their resources. Because these are arguments I heard from people who were going to sign the petition. I'm like, you're totally missing the ways that this has happened and is still happening to Indigenous peoples here. Because I can tell you don't even see them on the lands that, Alberta's oil sands are on. You don't even see the impact of that resource extraction on communities, on First Nations health. You don't see it, the impact on the environment. And again, the whole point of this, the reason why we have to do things, why we have to act in ways, is so that we can better understand where something is misaligned and where our energy is better directed in future. So yes, this demonstration, I'm glad I showed up because I learned so much about what I'd rather be doing, the conversations I would rather be having, the impact I would rather be making. Because really, for me, I don't want to be arguing with people who are still stuck in a colonial white supremacist mindset. I don't. I want to be building communities that are vibrant and connected and see the value in creating these emergent communities out of our diversity and shared strength. That's what I want to be doing. And with as much grief and heaviness as there is in the world right now, I have held on to guilt that I'm not an activist at heart. I don't I don't want to be the person at a protest. I don't. I see the value in it. I'm so grateful for the people who do show up in that way. But I also know for myself that my greatest impact is made through how I speak, through how I work with other people, and intentionally using my skills, my writing, my videos, my materials to expand people's capacity for building a brighter future. And I don't say that as a flippant thing. For me, this is a very tangible part of how I move through the world. It's why I go to the grocery store and smile at strangers, is to create a world that feels safer and brighter and easier, so that we can take these risky, overwhelming steps towards something beautiful. I think, and I know this because I have been there for myself, I think so many of us are so overwhelmed and stressed out and activated and we're drowning in what's wrong, what's awful. And I don't think we can or should deny that. A lot of my personal practices right now are to help me move through grief and anger. At the same time, if we are to create new systems instead of replicating these old ones, these colonial ones, these white supremacist ones, these heteropatriarchal ones, right? If we want to create new systems, we have to build the capacity for that level of uncertainty, because something totally new, even if it's a lot better, is going to be very, very difficult to get people on board with if they're overwhelmed and exhausted. And that's something that I'm really learning, and I'm learning how to embody it, and I'm learning how to best show up in vibrant systems as a business owner to support people who agree and want to build this vision that I want to build. Because I understand that not everybody's going to be able to reach out to me for a community partnership. I understand that not everybody can afford a $200 video course. And so I've been doing a lot of work and reflections, and I still am, and I don't think I'll ever get to an end point, because that's not how growth works. But it is something that I am, in spite of all the hardship and pain in the world, it's something I do look forward to. And if you're someone who, like me, you're in the process of actively expanding your comfort zones, of actively learning how you can show up for your community, how you can show up for the causes you care about, how you can stay engaged and informed so you can make values-aligned choices. If you're someone doing work like that, I want to remind you that the misfires, the times where you show up and you get there and you stick it out, but it's misaligned, you know it's not what you want to be doing, those times are just as important for your growth as the days where you stumble into something that feels amazing and feels so aligned and energizing and your heart's just singing while you're doing it. Both are equally important when we're calibrating our role in this grand system that we live in. And we have so many connections between us and to other people. And anytime you show up with positivity and optimism and a willingness to be brave and to be kind in that bravery, to be humble and willing to learn, every time you do that, speaking from experience, it's going to be so, so valuable to you and to the people whose lives you touch with your presence. My name's Danielle. If you are still with me, you should subscribe so you don't miss the next videos that I have coming up. I also have some events that I am hosting in February. If you're interested in speaking with me face-to-face, some of those events are even free. The rest are very affordably priced. I would love to see you there. I'll leave the registration link down below so you can check those out. Let's make your story a vibrant one.